Welcome to our next bonus module. And this module, second of several, is all about running a successful webinar and also Facebook Lives. Hosting webinars and Facebook Lives are a great way to increase your mailing list and attract new clients. It's a fabulous way to reach so many more people from the comfort of your own office, saving you money, but also making it easy and straightforward for them to do business with you. And if you want to work nationally, internationally, this will help you reach people in other parts of the world much more easily. So let's have a look at several elements of this today. Firstly, is going live, can't even say it, right for your business? That's the first thing. If you are offering a service, that is a great way to get people engaged, because sometimes what you do may be an intangible. What you maybe offer, it might be making people's lives easier, simpler to operate, offering them some quick tips. If you're about to launch a new product or a service, this is a fantastic way to educate your audience about what you're doing. And do you keep in touch with your audience in other ways? I think what's really fantastic about a webinar is that people are very much more responsive and being aware. And don't be worried if the first time you do it, not very many people turn up live. If you're really lucky, you'll get a good turnout. But let's look at how we can plan and prepare for that. So when you're planning your webinar or your key webinar here, we're talking about webinar specifically, think about why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Really important. So having a clearly defined purpose behind it is really important. If you're launching a new product, a new service, or just wanting to raise awareness of who you are and what you do, great way, but you need to have a very clearly defined view of it. Then the other thing to think about is your date and time. When and what time of day is really critical, because this can influence how many people are actually going to attend. So think about that, or maybe even drop a poll out on your social media platforms and ask people when would be good for them. Put them in the driving seat. Next thing you need to think about is what platform are you going to use? Because there are multiple platforms for webinars. I've had a play with several. There's Webinar Jam, GoToWebinar and Zoom. You need to get one that allows most people to access a replay, because as I said earlier, a lot of people aren't able to join you live. Personally, for me, I've used Zoom and done it as hosting a meeting, because if you keep your numbers low, it makes it a lot easier. Then we need to think about how you're going to get people to turn up. Think about a catchy headline that's going to grab people's interest to book it. How to double X, Y, and Z in 6 weeks, or how to release stress in 3 simple steps. Something very simple, very straightforward, and make sure you've got the word free in that headline so people know they're getting something for free. And the next thing is to consider is plan your marketing activity to get bookings for these webinars. I found that planning around 3 weeks ahead of the webinar date is the best thing, because if you put yourself in your audience's shoes, most people are planning their diary around 2 to 3 weeks ahead. And then once you've got your headline, you've got your date, so you've made a commitment, maybe put it onto Eventbrite as a free event so you can capture their data really easily and keep in touch with them through Eventbrite. Really easy and straightforward way of doing it. Then you start and source some images, because images are critical to use in your webinar. Have a good variety of images, just things that are going to catch people's attention, keep them engaged, keep them involved with you during it. And then as part of your planning, how are you going to benchmark your webinar success? Set some parameters, set yourself some objectives. 3 people to sign up for your online program, 1 new client and for your new VIP program, or just 5 inquiries that you're going to meet and have a face-to-face one-to-one. So just consider all of those options. And most importantly, when planning a webinar, think about a webinar only offer. So it's only available to 3 people who apply within 24 hours of the ending of the webinar. And you need to make sure that you trail that throughout your webinar, make them aware of it. Quite simply, it should be engaging. Really important. Interesting, yes, designed for the people who are watching it. And top tips, and by tips I mean we don't want to show people how to do things from scratch, but we also want to be giving them a taste of what it could be like to work with us. So pique their interest, if you like. And the other important thing about webinar is getting your audience involved. Yes, it may not look fantastic on your replay when you have chat buttons popping up, but asking the audience for feedback throughout is really critical. And make sure you've got that webinar only offer and make it for a limited time. So let's have a look at what the challenges are about running a webinar. One of the biggest difficulties is get people to come along live. Quite simply, I recently ran a webinar where we had 61 people signed up for my last webinar of this year, and of that 60, I think we had 16 there live, 16. The average stats around 30%, but because people have an opportunity to watch a recording, don't get lost in that too much. By making your webinar only offer only available for 24, 48 hours, you're encouraging to watch the recording. So when you send the recording out, make sure you're saying to them, you need to watch this quickly because I don't want you to miss out on the special offer. Getting them engrossed interest in what you're sharing and not doing other things whilst you're in the background. So when you think about the start of your webinar, think about asking them to minimize their distractions. I quite like to send an email in advance of the webinar with some top tips for getting the most out of it. So let's look at how we can plan ahead. Firstly, test the platform that you're going to use. I wrote my very first webinar, set it up on Zoom as a test, ran it to my husband who was sat in the next room, a bit mad, but hey, it was a great way to make it was going to work and that I was comfortable using the platform. You don't want to be learning how to do it while you've got your audience there live. Write yourself a script. I like to write a script and mark on the slide numbers so I know exactly where I'm at. So if you get distracted by questions, you've always got a place to go back to. And rehearse it. You should rehearse it at least 3 or 4 times to make sure you are comfortable. Yes, you've got a script to refer back to, but you need to check your timings. If you haven't checked your timings and you're massively overrunning, then you may lose your audience anyway because they've not got enough time to stay with you. And the other thing to check is anything that you're sending out to them, check all the links that you're sending. So set something up, say in MailChimp, or even in Eventbrite, because you can send emails to your mailing list from there, and check those links. So do a test email, clicking on every link to make sure they're going to be able to access the information that you want. Really, really important. And then when you've done all of that, rehearse again. So let's have a look at what you would do on the actual day itself. Before you start any of your slides, because I run all mine through PowerPoint, make sure you've got the audience can see and hear you. Make sure before you press start on the recording on Zoom or whichever platform you're using that you've established that, because the people watching the playback don't really want to hear all of that housekeeping, as I call it. And start with a statement that's going to get them really excited. So even if you believe you're getting great business from social media, you need to be paying attention because I'm going to be sharing lots of tips with you. You need to keep their attention throughout. I like to ask questions where I can. Keep their attention by posing questions back to them. How does that work for you? What challenges do you face? How would you feel if we could do X, Y, and Z to help you? And really importantly, if you've researched it, have lots of pictures. there is a rule of thumb of about an hour's webinar, you should have about 20 to 30 images. Really depends how active your whole webinar is and what your topic is. And make sure you have that script to hand so you don't go off piste, so you don't miss anything. When I start my webinar, I say this is your investment in you for you to learn a little bit more. So I always suggest that they're gifting themselves the next 30 minutes, the next 45 minutes, because they're going to learn so much. And I would also like to say, you know, these are things you can put into practice immediately, which will benefit you personally or your business, depending on what it is that you're promoting. So on the day, make sure you ask questions and ask the audience to participate by putting their comments in the comments box. You'll see what I mean when you go onto Zoom or Webinar Jam or any of the others. In regard to the platforms, I'd really encourage you to have a play with them and remind them as you start. For those of you who stay at the end, I have a special free gift for you, top 10 secrets to X, Y, and Z, or a free discovery call, whatever it is that is relevant to your business. So ask lots of questions, you know, think about the open questions: who, how, why, what, where, when, which. Or my other favorite, I say, tell me, have you ever got a lead from Facebook? How did that happen? You're engaging them. You know, let them know that you can fix the challenges they're facing within your webinar. So you're engaging them from the first few minutes of the webinar and tell them that you can help them. You're going to capture their interest. You know, say to them, you're in the right place if you aren't getting results from your blog writing activity, if you were a blog writer, for example. You know, the reality is, you know, I might say something, the number one fear of using social media is that I can't be consistent or I struggle with time. Address their issues before you even get into it. So let's have a look at images, because the images are what keep, one of the things, apart from your lovely voice, that keep them engaged and interested. Now I'm going to share a couple with you. I have used all of these and still do. Pixabay. This is Canva, which is great. You can upload your logos and everything into here, create fantastic branded images. It's a great platform. This is Get Stencil, but there are numerous royalty-free image websites out there that you can get and use to create interesting, engaging images. These three probably are the three that I use the most. Make sure you, as we said at the start, have a folder where you're creating your webinar images and having them to hand, because who's to say you wouldn't need to use them again? So really vital. Have a look at your timings. Make sure your timings absolutely pitch perfect. So plan your introduction, plan the basic content, and plan for your offer. So almost break it down. And if I find by breaking it down sort of 5 minutes for a bit of housekeeping, then 2 or 3 minutes about me and my business, because there may be people on the call on the webinar who don't know me, which is really important that they do feel as though they know me. So I don't have my camera switched on. I've tried that, doesn't work because I have a headset on, because when you're recording, you will get a much better sound if you have a headset on. So I've got a simple gamer's headset. I think it was £15–16 from Tesco's. And it means that we get a much better sound quality, which is exactly what I use to record these videos. So think about your timings. Think about how long you're going to be online. I always try and factor in 5 minutes at the end for any Q&A. Or if I've overrun, I will say, we haven't got time for Q&A, but I will offer them a free 15-minute discovery call through the scheduling platform that I use. So it's just a little bit about timing. And then think about your offer. It has to be something really exciting. A value bomb, I like to call it. that is going to position you as you've positioned yourself through your webinar activity as the Wikipedia of your business, of what you do. You're going to have them desperate. The most exciting thing in the world for me is me to be running a webinar, teased in an offer, because I like to tease the offer in about 3 times throughout with a big pitch at the end, is when I'm still live on the call and people are messaging me saying I'm in. That's when you know you've done a great job or you've had the right type of people there. So make sure you've thought long and hard about the offer, make it time limited, make sure when you do your follow-up that you've put a link in and remind them. And I usually do a couple of emails afterwards to say the offer ends at 5 p.m. tonight, offer ends in an hour, offer's closed, done. So really important. So let's have a look at follow-up, because a webinar is only as good once you've got their data, you've got their information, they've signed up to keep in touch with you, as the follow-up. So think about this. What follow-up do you have in place? And how soon are you going to do it? Was your offer compelling enough? How are you going to measure results and what will your next step be? So let's break that down. Follow-up you should have in place should be within around an hour, ideally, of my webinar ending. I like to send an email to say, thank you for joining me. Here's the link to watch the webinar again. If you'd like to book a free discovery call, here's the link. Because I've tested all of that, it's set up. All I need to do is drop them the link for the webinar from Zoom or whatever platform. So thinking about all of those elements. So first follow-up should be within an hour of the webinar ending. Then I would recommend a follow-up the following morning to say you've got 12 hours left to take advantage of your offer, and then maybe another email an hour, 2 hours before the webinar offer ends. What do you do if they haven't signed up? Was your offer compelling enough? So how are you going to measure your results? And you need to maybe pause this video and think about that, or think about it before you run your first ever webinar. And what are your next steps going to be? Maybe you might want to set up a survey and email them saying, I'm planning further webinars over the course of the next 6 months. Could you tell me what topics you'll be interested in learning more on? It's really interesting to get feedback from your audience. Ask them what they want to learn more about. So think about your next steps. First thing I would encourage you to consider is adding them to your mailing list and doing a monthly newsletter out, especially to those webinar people. Really important. So let's have a look at planning a Facebook Live. And there's a lot of similarities between the two. But first thing to think about with a Facebook Live is, yes, we need to plan, we need to prepare, but we don't always get their data. So we need to think about all of the different elements for that. So let's have a look at planning it now. Think about why you're doing it. Again, plan your date and time. And the great thing about Facebook is you can use your insights to see when your audience is most likely to be active. Or you could, as we've talked about before, create a poll and find actually that lunchtime's the best people. I've tried Facebook Lives first thing in the morning, lunchtimes, not really evenings. I don't believe that that particularly works for my audience, but it may be different for yours. So once again, you need to think about planning a headline to grab people's interest for them to join you. And the difference with a Facebook Live is because Facebook is so fast moving, you only need to plan this about a week before. So plan your marketing activity that you're going to do to get people there. You might do some sponsored Facebook posts, but promote it daily, at least once a day. Think of it like, at the minute I'm seeing there's certain films, Paddington 2, there's one, there's instantly puts us into a time frame of when we're recording this. Think about like a film trailer. I'm seeing adverts for Paddington 2 on the telly, I'm seeing adverts for Paddington 2 on the sides of buses, bus shelters, billboards. So think about the type of marketing activity you're going to do, maybe not just on Facebook. Email your mailing list, tell them about it. So think of it like a film trailer. So let's look at your checklist for your Facebook Live. Think about where you're going to do it geographically. Are you going to do it in your own home office? Are you going to do it in a designated office away from home? Wherever you do it, think about what's sitting behind you. You don't want it to look like you're sitting in your living room. Have a pop-up banner if you've got one. Think about how well have you trailed it. Are people talking about on Facebook? You want people to share your posts. Ultimately on Facebook, if we're writing share-worthy content, you will get people interested and online for it. How are you going to ensure you've covered everything? So think back to writing a script. Make sure you've written a script. Have something to hand, even if it's just a series. If I'm doing a Facebook Live, I quite often will have some flip chart paper with just a pen, blue tacked onto another wall. Sounds very glamorous, doesn't it? With the key points I want to get over, because you don't, on a Facebook Live, you've got to be looking right at the camera. You've got to make sure that your camera is in the right position and that you're looking at the camera, not at your phone in itself. So you're looking into the white. You're seeing, people are seeing the whites of your eyes, thinking about your hair, if it's a woman, makeup, woman or man potentially, how you're dressed. These are all things that you need to consider with a Facebook Live, because they are seeing you. What is the image that you want to project? Is it an image that mirrors your personal profile photos on your social media? And think about what's the optimum length of your Facebook Live. I've found historically around 20 minutes, and there's no reason why you couldn't do a Facebook Live every day for a week, because once you've built your momentum, if you're on a particular topic, so I'm thinking about doing one when I come back in January for 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, each day a different topic, because then you've got an opportunity to build up momentum, because people will then be talking about your first one. It's just a tip, just a thought. I've not tried it. I'm not going to say it works fantastically, but it's just something to give some thought to. So give some thought to that. The other thing you need to think about is, are you able to record it? But the key thing with Facebook Live is people will catch it later. I have quite a lot of Facebook Lives I'll catch later because they're not at a time. So if people are following you, they'll get notifications that you are live and they can watch it. So when you've completed your Facebook Live, just as we do with webinars, it's really important that you have some review. So think about, how did it go? Were you able to engage with people? If, like me, you wear reading glasses, unfortunately, when I'm doing a Facebook Live, I have to keep my glasses on. I need to get some cooler glasses, because there's nothing worse than hosting a Facebook Live and you can't read people's comments when they're asking questions, because engagement is really critical in a Facebook Live. So think about that. How many people did you have there live? Did you make them an offer? I'd encourage you to think about one element of this, which is, why not invite everybody who's there on the day a free 15-minute follow-up call one-to-one with you? They click on the link, which then means you get their contact details. So you can say, join me on Facebook Live, click this link to get your free follow-up call, and then you've got them and you can then start to keep in touch with them. So if you're making an offer, it might just be for a free follow-up call to explore the challenges that you're facing. So if you've done that, you can then do a follow-up, but the follow-up you might do might be entirely different. It might be follow-up around doing more Facebook Lives. One thing I've learned is people like the idea that you're there regularly. I know that people have specific days of the week when they're setting it out to their network that they're live on Facebook at noon every Friday. If you're able to do that, fantastic. But you need to evaluate what worked, what didn't work, so next time you can scale it up, change it, edit it, do whatever you like with it. And I hope that has been really useful for you. So our next bonus module is a whole load of top Canva tips, which are going to be delivered to you very soon. So key things around webinars and Facebook Lives: prepare, plan how you're going to market it, write yourself a script or at least some prompts, use lots of images, make sure you have an offer that is a limited time offer, and then follow up, follow up, follow up. And let me know how you get on. I look forward to seeing you soon in the next module.